turn this country to a state of some stability, to a state of some moral stability. We cannot and we must not, as parliamentarians, as leaders, present ourselves as paragons of virtue, which we are definitely not. But I repeat, as social planners and political leaders, we must establish that architecture, that infrastructure that safeguards the interests of all young people in this country, including those who deviate from the norms, the accepted norms of behavior. I am sorry that I must say to you, Your Honor, that I have not come to comfort the disturbed. I prefer to disturb those who are comfortable in an environment in which we cannot remain comfortable. We cannot. I have been given the responsibility of leading a committee on governance in this place. I was given the responsibility of chairing a commission on local governance. And we went across this country from 2019 until last year, when we presented to the cabinet in text and orally our report to the government as to the need for local government in this country. Again, I say to this House, I say to this country, let that new scheme of local government be a part of the architecture, be a part of the infrastructure that will safeguard the interests of this country, and that will safeguard the interests of the young people of this country. If this country is to be as livable over the next 15, 20 years as it was over the last 55 years of independence. I therefore present that report to this House and commend that report to this House as a scheme that will help this country to develop. As I've said before, progressive budgets will develop us materially, but we remain in peril when we ignore moral enfranchisement. And I am concerned, Your Honor. I am deeply concerned. But there's light. There's light, as they say at the end of the proverbial tunnel. I had a short conversation last night with my honourable colleague who represents St. John. I think he is responsible for sports. Short conversation, but very, very productive. And I said to him, he has a great challenge on his hands. I say that because in any scheme of local government, sport must be important. We must embrace sport and the development of sport. The world produced, or this country, produced the world's greatest cricketer of all time. And those who live for the next 50 years, I wager, will not see as great a cricketer as Sir Garfield St. Auburn Sobers. And I say this country produced him. But more particularly, beg your pardon? Cricketer, yes, cricketer. I say this country produced him. And more particularly, the Barbados Cricket League produced him. From a league of 122 clubs across this country, guaranteeing to this society social stability. Don't underestimate the value and the importance of sport. Don't underestimate the value and the importance of cricket to this country. 122 clubs times 11 every Saturday were engaging themselves in wholesome, uplifting activity which gave this country its reputation. I understand they have now dwindled to 20. And my friend and colleague, the Honourable Member for St. John, has set himself the challenge of restoration of sporting clubs. But I will tell you something about sporting clubs, Your Honor. And I'm talking local government here. Because a club formed in the 60s or the 70s was a form, albeit informal, of local government. Communities that welded themselves together around a single activity. Generally, it was sport. Sometimes it was what they call cultural activity. But it was all about social cohesion. It was about management, even of a village, even of a community, even of a parish, extending to a country. This country was managed at the local level for many, many years in a very informal way through our sports clubs, our community clubs, and what they call our cultural clubs. I support the Honourable Member for St. John if he wishes not to go back, but to go forward. And to go forward drawing on positive examples, as I said, in which 122 young men, I beg your pardon, 122 clubs of 11 men, populated the fields, the greens of this country every Saturday and Thursdays in the nets, and gave this country the social stability that it had. Simple arithmetic tells me that if those clubs have dwindled to 22, where are the 100? And what are those young men doing? What is their activity on Saturdays and perhaps Sundays? Is it riding down the highway as I see it, with the front wheel in the air? Recreational, perhaps. But they do it on Wednesdays in heavy traffic. It's a breach of the Road Traffic Act. We know that. But if a young man lifts that front wheel in the air in heavy traffic, not only is he endangering his own life, but there's some lady in a small car, I don't want to advertise anybody's vehicle, but he is exposing her to death. People panic when they see them. Again, my interpretation of that behavior is the behavior of protest. What is it that brings a man to ride down a street heavy with traffic and to lift the wheel and put us all in danger? It's a very public display of deviance. It's a very public display of unlawful behavior in contravention of the Road Traffic Act, which needs to be amended to prevent that. It needs to be made more than a misdemeanor. It needs to be made felonious. Because there is some young lady in her car who she cannot afford an expensive SUV like yours, and she is at risk. She is at risk. The other area that must find itself, the other agency, government agency, that must find itself associating with initiatives in local government is the arts. I look back with such fondness, such absolute fondness, Your Honor, at a Barbados in which I can stand here and call the names of the folk groups. I can call them. If he were in his seat, I would ask for applause for the Honourable Member for St. Philip South Country Theatre Workshop. I hope I'm not disclosing anything to this country that he wishes to remain private. But the Honourable Member for St. Philip South was a member of a dance group called Country Theatre Workshop. Again, another form of local organization, informal local government, which made for the stability of this country. And the Honourable Member for St. Michael East is sounding his voice in my direction because he wants to be included in the applause with the Israel Level Foundation. These are our local heroes. Men and women who kept this society not only stable, but men and women who kept this society happy. And young people felt that they belonged to a social unit that protected them and made them into worthy citizens. What is happening now? Where's our moral compass? I know what is our moral duty. Our moral duty is that of restoration. Restoration, Your Honor. The other institution that must be embraced by a system of local government is the institution of education. And I've had the occasion in here to say previously that education is not maths and English. Education itself extends itself. Education extends itself into a transmission of values. That is fundamentally what education is about. Education is not conducted within the four walls of a classroom. Education is an entire holistic experience, which includes the arts, and it includes sports. And the teachers in the primary schools will tell you, and they have told you for many years, Your Honor, that the best students, and when I say best, I'm not talking about the ones who get in the 90s, I'm talking about human development. The best students are those who don't only read and perform their maths and their English, but they engage themselves in what we call extracurricular. And we will need to reach the point in this country and in our schools where we cease to refer to the arts and the sports as extracurricular. It must be regarded as being central to the curriculum because the sports and the arts are central to a child's development. But I haven't left the theme of the moral decline that we are seeing displayed among our young people. This is all included in the agenda to save our young people and by extension to save this country. I repeat, I have not come to comfort the disturbed. Let my words disturb those who remain comfortable in spite of what is happening in this country. But there's hope. There's hope. I heard my colleague and my friend, the Honourable Member for St. John, express hope. He used the word hope. And we all must join with him. Hope, my friend, springs from faith. Let us join with that hope optimism. Optimism springs from the evidence. And we want some evidence that this country is willing to return us on a path that will save itself and will more particularly save the young people of this country. On another occasion, I will express my voice honestly, and if it must be an independent voice, so be it. I engage my conscience when I speak on matters public. And I come to this place with the virtue of courage. And if that speech places me in the minority, it matters not to me if this country, the interest of this country, is dependent even on listening to a minority view. And I beseech those with the responsibility to approach this question of the common entrance exam with some care. Yes, there are points in national life where we need to fix things. But when I was doing Latin at school, there was a phrase, festina lente, hasten slowly. There's no rush to do good. And if that rush makes us stumble upon bad, let us hasten slowly. And let us engage the views of our parents. Let us engage the views, importantly, of the other important stakeholders within the institution of education, those who sit centrally, the teachers. Education has brought this country too far. Too far!
Honourable Member, you have 5 more minutes.
5 minutes. You're very kind, sir. Thank you. Education has brought this country too far. And let us develop it. And let us do so carefully. Festina lente. That is as much as I will say on that for the time being. And will add that I beg my colleagues, as we went around this country, begging the citizens of this country to find that a system of local government will rescue this country, that for too long, constitutionally and politically, governance, the systems of governance have been top-heavy. And there's no reason why a man living in a community, whether it is wealthy or poor, should feel at the mercy, should feel that he must wait on the benevolence of the executive for infrastructural development to take place in his community. But not only is it about material enfranchisements. It is about a community having a sense of responsibility, having its own sense of responsibility for its development, so that a properly functioning system of local governance will embrace the welfare system, and it will become a scheme of protection in which the local people protect their own, in which indigence does not have to go on the front page of any newspaper and does not call necessarily on the kindest intervention of a minister, but that the local people, as happened in Barbados. Do you understand, Your Honor, that several children who used to be homeless and were potentially homeless were housed quietly in homes across Barbados, in country and town? Several, and I quote, strangers found themselves living as brother and sister in a house down the street. And they were not related. And the rest of us who looked on curiously. And we weren't sure whether they were a brother, a cousin, whether there was any blood relation The point I make to you again, Your Honor, is that this country had reached such a high point of social development that it protected its own. I appeal to my colleagues to embrace a system of local governance and local government. You lose nothing for supporting it. You gain a country. You gain a community. And it is a gain that will receive the blessing of the Almighty. There's a sense in which it is holy. We need to rescue this country morally. Good budgets will go part of the way. Will go part of the way. But if we lose that sense of compassion, if we lose that sense of being our brother's keeper, our pockets could be full, but our hearts remain empty. I thank you, Your Honor, for the time that you've given me. I feel strongly on this subject, and perhaps at some point, there will be a head brought to this Parliament under which I can expand more fully. I'm obliged to you, sir.
Thank you. Honourable Member for St. Michael East. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I hope, I'm surprised that my voice is so loud. Anyhow, I hope that you heard me, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I might not be as eloquent as my friend from Christchurch, who is a learned brother in many different areas of human endeavor, different disciplines. But I hope that I'll be able to make sense of a few words which I intend to babble today. And sir, where I go around, I will hope that my colleagues, who are much wiser than I am, will be able to bring me back on track. Sir, I want to be inspired by a stanza, just 2 verses of a stanza, as I said before, by an outstanding Caribbean man. It is called, This is a Dark Day. This is a dark time, my love. Martin Carter, correct. I know you would correct me, sir. This is a dark time, my love. All around the lands, beetles crawl about. The sun, the morning sun, is hidden in the sky. And red flowers bend their heads in awful sorrow. This is a dark time, my love. It's the season of oppression, dark metal, and tears. It's a festival of guns, the carnival of misery. Everywhere the face of men are strained and anxious. I sometimes when I reflect on the material by Martin Carter, I asked how a man that has deceased so long, that never lived in these lands, can capture all the public issues that affect our lives at this moment. I was hearing people talking about COVID. I want to talk more about what COVID has done to us. I've heard people talking about Elsa. I want to talk about what Elsa has done to us, the vicious Elsa. Because the Minister of Housing would have to respond to what are the consequences, the impact of Elsa on the society. What has happened to us as a consequence of the vicious, wicked, and I almost say malicious, which is equally as, or rather synonymous with wicked, wicked COVID. So many children, especially poor children that need the assistance in the schools across Barbados, 2 years older, and now struggling to catch up. Some of them during that period, they had no iPads, no laptops, no electricity in their houses. And that's why I say that this is a dark time. And that is why I'm of the opinion that Martin Carter means so much in order for me to create the psychological construct of our reality. I know we can pick out different little things and identify them and say this constitutes a budget. And I'm not saying that anybody can capture in any holistic way all the different aspects, fundamental aspects of the things that affect our lives. No human being can get it done. There's always something that would be excluded from the assessment. But when you make the assessment, you still got to construct solutions. All of a sudden, in this society, we are hearing all types of charlatans, uninformed, unscientific, facing the vicarious nature of the trauma which they experienced during the last election. The people indicated very clearly, you are not bringing anything to the table that is worthy of our consideration. Consequence, everybody in one of those groups who thought they were of importance to the Barbadian public, every man lose his deposit at the Treasury is much fatter tonight as a consequence of these peripheral characters who thought that they had an answer. And when you believe that in the post-election period these people would have hid and reconsider the way in which they were rejected, they want to make comments every day in the newspaper about how this government is performing. And even when some of them or one of them was in here, he didn't put anything of any great significance. It is not Prescod's judgment, it's not the member of St. Michael's East judgment, it's the people's judgment. You had to move from one constituency to another. And even after they do that, they could not save a deposit. It said something then about the kind of confusion at the time that we are in, the kind of confusion that we're in, where people do not even know their place in terms of how they can contribute to the development of Barbados. And that is why I was inspired this morning to go to the text by Martin Carter, because it is just a period of that kind of confusion. And then they find themselves playing a role within the daily newspapers and expressing their views on radios and television. And somebody who obviously, in the people's mind, you don't get 30 seats on 2 occasions. It has never happened anywhere in the world. And the people must judge us in everything that we do. It is not an elitist core of persons who assume that there are the brains of the society that decided that we should get 30 seats. The people, the ordinary people in the street, who, as I said before, don't have shoes in some cases, don't work the way, homeless. The people say you are not worthy of representing them. I must give credit to the Honourable Prime Minister of Barbados. Some people might be a little surprised knowing that I have experienced things in my life that should cause me to think different. But I don't have malice in my heart. I don't have malice in my heart. If I feel that you do me wrong, I will tell you that you do me wrong. And when I get up in the morning, you are my friend if you so desire to be. Otherwise, if you don't feel like being my friend, my purpose for being here, I am parliamentary representative of the people of St. Michael's East. I ain't nobody. I ain't walking about doing anything in order to find the favors for me to get no job, no ministry, nothing so. So anytime I say something about the Prime Minister of Barbados, I say objectively, with no malice for any human being, including some people that people believe that I don't like. I have had Caucasian friends. Look, the member for St. Thomas probably is one of my friends that I have had for many years. But we have had one or two little, you know what it is. We are two different persons. I know, I don't know if the Deputy Prime Minister, I don't know, he put me to sit beside of her, and I got to be very careful that I don't receive a right hook. For quite a long time, she withdrew from me our friendship. But I love you. I love you. I love you. Honestly, I love you. And I tell you why I love you too, because I believe that you have a right to be here. And even in a budget, I know that whenever you express yourself with the passion that you do, I believe that it is because you are on the same track as I am on, because our central purpose to participate in any debate in here is to respond to issues if we feel that the issues don't relate to the level of persistent poverty that exists in this society. And the minister from St. Michael's South will discover that one of the most dangerous creatures in public life that we have always been confronted with is poverty. You can't have a debate and exclude poverty. You don't want any word that is synonymous with poverty. The people in Barbados who live in poverty, they are so numb in the circumstances that they're living, they don't even know that they're still living in poverty. And poverty is persistent, and it appears in this kind of economic system, it is eternal. And anytime we make an analysis of an economy, as we did prior to 2008, all right? Remember for St. Thomas? It was 2008 when we went on a program, and I don't want to travel so far, that the Prime Minister of the day placed as our major theme, not only in the Ministry of Social Transformation, all the other esoteric things that they were talking about, he said the eradication of poverty is central to our program, annual program. And I was waiting to hear that aspect of it. I admire, and I'm telling you this here from my heart, the humility. I admire all the principles that came along with all the packaging within the last budget. I don't believe that anybody else in here or outside could have done anything better. But the caveat is the element of poverty. You might talk about the reductions on gasoline, on diesel. You might talk about the effort to curtail diabetes, hypertension, all of that. But poverty is at the core of all of this that we must address. And I believe that the honorable member has a responsibility to his mother, his father from St. Michael's South, his family in Lakeridge Village, the people in the point from which he sprung, right? He has a responsibility to include in this debate his passion and commitment for the eradication of poverty. You did that, and I was absent. I have a friend that many people in this room would refer to as a vagrant, because some people use that word now as though it is musical to their ears. And I went to put him down today at St. Philip Parish Church because he's my friend. Whenever he goes there, he's my friend. They call him philosopher. Because you saw him out there and nobody would believe who he is. He taught at Ferguson. He worked at the Caribbean Development Bank. But he had a bad break. And because of that bad break and the mental challenges which he had, he never wanted to live in a house again. So these are important things that we must look at in the society. We have men on the street, men living in poverty. When they get on the street, they might not be mentally ill, but if you stay on the street for a few days, you have to make an adaptation to the new environment that you live in, so you become a person who then must face the challenges that a person who lives in poverty and in those circumstances must face. And poverty, sir, and diabetes, I heard all the medical terminologies and trying to understand diabetes and what you must take after you get sick. But we have diabetics around here, people suffering with hypertension around here because of the inflictions of colonial history. Enough sugar, not from beet, not from any other fruit, not from any other cane, but sugar cane. Diabetes. We have more amputees in Barbados per capita than probably any other place in the world. People, we have the responsibility to explain to Barbadians not only what people are experiencing, because education is fundamental, but why they are experiencing it. What is the cause? Like when you go to a doctor, the doctor can only give you a prescription if he knows what is wrong, the history and the cause of the problem, and diagnosis. And the pharmacist on the other side will tell you he can only prescribe certain things for men if men explain to him, even though sometimes they're a bit reluctant to do so, what is their problem? And then he provides the remedy. The Minister for the Blue Economy. Right. And when the Minister for the Blue Economy puts forward the solution, most of the time you recognize that this is a real professional man. Sir, but hypertension, the things that we eat every day. So you had discussions. This is a prime minister. This is a prime minister that is thinking. So you had debates in here that took up 10 minutes and so on. If you should get insurance, if you should use insurance, if it's for health purposes, or if it's something that is used for recreational purposes or anything so. But the evidence, the empirical evidence by the man in the street, is that whenever he is experiencing the discomforts and don't feel like eating solid food or drinking certain things, he will go to the supermarket and 12 insures if he has the money to do so, because that is another aspect of poverty. Many things that we know can help us to live a normal life. We would love to have it, but we live in a raw capitalist society where everybody who is involved in business try to get around the business. So when we try to eradicate poverty, they're trying to push prosperity for themselves and their families. These are some of the things, so we can talk it every year. I went through budgets, and this was a great one, but I went through budgets, and I heard many things. I can mention many things that we set about to achieve, but we never achieve it. When we were here last time, we were talking about medical marijuana, recreational marijuana for sacramental purposes, all these kind of things. I thought that in 2 weeks' time we got all these things by the table and we were making some dollars coming down in Barbados. The arguments went down from the Christian community. The moralists in the society start talking about Barbados getting involved in marijuana, right? The whole all set of collectives at Ross University, at the next place, having discussions on this, the medicinal value of this plant. Men flew down here, multi-millionaires flew down here on planes, and we had things on social media telling us who is the next man that can own a big marijuana plantation. Boy, we were agitated, right? Everybody was thinking about this thing, whether this is something that we should dismiss or not. And some of the men that I was talking about is drink 3 or 4 pints of alcohol, rum from Iron Seal, and Mount Gay a day. So I said this is a strange environment that we're living in, Madam Chair. But what is important is that you don't just get up and talk. The Prime Minister did not get up and talk. The Prime Minister said, my principles are grounded in Ubuntu. And you ask, what is that? But it's an African philosophy. It is an African philosophy. It tells you that you cannot divorce economics from philosophy. So anybody coming here with a knee-jerk view of what economics is supposed to be, and you don't understand political economy or the philosophy of economics, the one that you want to apply called all is not the same. Small people, look, Marx had a view. And as much as Western propaganda might confuse the heads of people who are superficial in the area of both Western knowledge and Eastern knowledge, philosophy as well, Marx had a view about if you have, you help those who don't. That's all it was saying. If you have, Marx preached equality. Marx preached whatever word you choose. You can call it socialism, communism. Marx preached the building of not only a communist society or a socialist society. People interchange words. But he preached about building an egalitarian state. But if we can preach everything we want to preach in here, but we don't execute. I was in here recently, and I was trying to point out the manner in which the bureaucracy behaves, because I was hearing it every day in my age, in the membership room, on the streets, how the bureaucracy obstructs government all the time. And if they work with one government, and then another one come in and attempt to reverse the policy, and they feel they were participating in the construction of the first policy, the bureaucracy don't respond in a favorable way.
Honourable member, I feel your passion, but you have 5 more minutes remaining.
Sir, how you can do that to me, and I got some magazines. I believe, sir, that you have, with your authority, a little, an elastic,
Well,
pop? Okay. But, ma'am, I was just trying to put these things. There are other people might not always agree with the philosophy of certain thoughts. But I believe, sir, that I feel that I had to put that philosophical framework in place. But I also want to say, right, I don't want to make this point about my friend, but I hope that my friend from St. George, where is it, the Dwight is South? Dwight is South? St. George South, take warning that he has, don't mind how massive or mammoth or astronomical the task might appear to be. He has to deliver 10,000 houses to the people of Barbados. That is his responsibility. People only respect an institution when the institution do things that other people believe can't be done. I've heard a very stern warning given to him, sir. 10,000 houses, prove yourself, or come and take a seat over here with Prescod. You all understand that. He produced 10,000 houses. I don't know, you can get the land. I hear the boy tell you can get the money if you take out the land by compulsory acquisition. But he got to build 10,000 houses, or I will vacate this seat, and he will get an opportunity to sit here. Out here is representative of a symbolic position, right? So although you're not part, it might not be de jure, but it looks as though it has some de facto meaning. I'm sorry to say that about the more youthful and the more recent persons who came to Parliament. But when I come over here, I feel as though I am placed in an alien environment. I have to get back into the debate. Sir, just let me make this point, because I think I owe this to the people of St. Michael's. Sir, there is a water project in the belt. It has to come up in every debate. There's a water project in the belt. I have thousands of people, and the Speaker of this House also, he has thousands of people living in those pockets in a very derogatory way. In my view, people refer to them as squatters. The people that live down there, they got wells. Some might not be as deep as anything at Coral Ridge. And sometimes they got large families. It's just a little pit. I've been pleading, not even saying it's the government fault, I've been pleading for decades for the development of that community. And I'm going a little further now, because after time you modify your ideas. I don't even want them to put in just waterborne toilets, then water, the utility service of light and water, or roads. But I think the government needs to have about 3 or 4 urban phases of urban development, where some of the houses that are constructed there, the government make it their responsibility to build modern houses for them, like any other place. I want something like London-born towers, or the ones at Kensington, with the place out there, Country Road. I believe that the state can take on that responsibility. Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3 of the housing construction program for the people there. And where there is a necessity to realign the houses, when you do that, it is something that the people will respect. If you just deal with the utility services, people can be living in the same houses of the same quality in the specific area. So it's going to be on the agenda until I leave here. I am not leaving so soon. So whoever got it on the agenda, like they had it before, it's a waste of time. Because when they come here, the people put me here for 5 years, and you can get 5 years of truth and representation of the people of St. Michael's East. Sir, I am sorry that I spend so much time. You might even describe it as froth, right?
No,
but
sir.
I felt I had to give it a philosophical framework first, right? I hope that on the next occasion, I know I can't prejudice the chair, but I hope on the next occasion you will be so impressed that I'm saying something of importance to your ears that you will extend and give me another half hour in order to make a presentation. So I want to thank you for allowing me to just make that brief contribution to the debates, the national debates of Barbados, and I hope that we can fulfill all the tenets within the declaration in which the Prime Minister stated in her budgetary proposals. I strongly believe that this was a good budget in comparison to what we have now in our environment. There's no big set of intellectual debate on the outside or sometimes in here as well. Right? So I want to thank you, sir. I am not going to encroach on your responsibilities any further. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Honourable Member for Christchurch East.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, thank you so much for the opportunity to... Mic is on. Mr. Deputy, hello, testing. Mr. Deputy Speaker, thank you so much for the opportunity to respond and to lend my voice to this debate. Before I start, it being, I guess, the largest stage that a politician will have in the course of a year, I just want to thank the good people of Christchurch. I just want to thank the good people. The mic is on. Can you hear me clearly? Can you hear me clearly? I just want to thank the good people of Christchurch East who returned me, and I continue my pledge to have your back as you had mine in the last election. Sir, Oliver Wendell Holmes, a former justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, said, and it's probably one of the most famous quotes about government, that taxes are the price we pay for a civilized society. And in some respects, sir, a civilized society is the entire purpose of government. We come here to make a difference. We come here to create and maintain order. We come here to do what is necessary for the persons in a country. We come here for the betterment of Barbados, and we try to make our society civilized. One of the ways that we do this, sir, is that we come to the people and we explain to them what the government's plans are, how we plan to spend the money, and what we plan to do to take our country forward. And that's what we commonly refer to, sir, as a budget address. Now, I've heard the criticisms that have come from the usual places following the Prime Minister's address on Monday. But if we are honest with ourselves, sir, the lead up to this budget, the anticipation and the fear of the average Barbadian was that we were going to get laced with taxes. The average Barbadian was living in fear as to what exactly would be delivered on last Monday, how much would it impact us, and how far would it set us back. And I think the fears of the average Barbadian were largely unrealized by the pronouncements and the plans as espoused by the Honourable Prime Minister. So this was not a giveaway budget, because this is not the time to give away. The reality is that we're in a very, very difficult time in our country's history. We're in a very difficult time globally. The economic realities are what they are. We've been through perhaps the most trying time that the country has gone through over the last 3 years. And we have expenses that we have to accommodate. We have programs and projects that carry over from COVID, they carry over from the ashfall, they carry over from, you're trying to move forward, but the electricity bill threatening to get cut off. So you have to balance in a budget, so is like balancing a household income or running a household on a much larger scale with a lot more implications. So this was not a giveaway budget because we could not do that. And I think Barbados as a whole realized that this was not a time for that. But neither was this a punitive budget. So it wasn't budgetary punishment. The vast majority of persons who have weighed in, the economists, have a long-term plan, you stick it out. And the gains are realized if you actually stick that plan all the way through as opposed to trying to catch at everything. So we have a plan to take Barbados out. We know what it is that has to be done to grow Barbados. We started under the IMF. We started with a lot of our programs. We were set back by COVID. But the reality is that this government and this Prime Minister knows what is necessary to take Barbados forward. Sir, we also heard the cries of the people. If you think about the components of the budget and you think about the comments that were coming before, a lot of the cries of the average person were heard. One of the biggest cries from people is that they wanted a cap on the gasoline prices. We are aware of what is going on in Ukraine. We are aware of how it's going to impact us. We have no control over the actual price of oil. What we have a control over is what we tack on to it once it gets here. And while we can't control the international cost of oil, the government has put a cap on petroleum products, a VAT cap, 47 cents per litre, sir, on gas, and 37 cents per litre on diesel. We don't know what is going to happen in the next 6 months, and it's a fluid situation, so it's only for 6 months, but we heard the cry of people. Sir, we've been pushing for a fully electric Barbados by 2030, that all of our energy will be derived from renewable sources, a carbon neutral footprint. We keep pushing all of that. But where are we going with it? One of the important things, sir, is electric mobility. We kept saying that if we are trying to reach a 2030 horizon for the realization of our renewable energy contemplations, so then we have to start now with electric vehicles. We have to push electric vehicles. We have to start cutting back on the fossil fuel vehicles. The government started with the buses, the electric buses. Since last year or the year before, all of the new vehicles that the government is purchasing for use in the ministries where electric vehicle options can work, they have gone with electric vehicles. But we've now expanded that to include the average person. Now, and commensurate with that, sir, was a master stroke. The government has increased the cap on interest-free loans to public servants to purchase vehicles if you are purchasing an electric vehicle from $50,000 to $100,000. So quite frankly, with the cost of electric vehicles, now if you take off the import duties and you take off the VAT, you're very likely to be able to get a reasonable electric vehicle for significantly less than $100,000. So you can actually get your entire vehicle with an interest-free loan. We have heard people. We are pushing the government's agenda, and they're doing it and we are doing it in a smart way. Sir, a budget is not going to please everybody. The whole principle of taxation, sir, is that money has to come from some people to be able to go to benefit others. That's the reality. Somebody has to pay for others to benefit. You try to spread that burden as widely as possible, sir, and we've tried to do that. But quite frankly, the government has debts that it has to deal with following COVID and following the calamities we had over the last couple of years. The government committed to replacing the houses of persons who were destroyed, in the hurricane and the freak storm. And this is not a case of giving away. There are people who are not in a position to replace their houses.